Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Iconic Dollcast. My name is Sage, your host. Welcome back to another episode all about dolls. Today, I am chatting with a wonderful doll collector named Nick, who is coming to us all the way from Australia. Well, on Zoom, but you know what I mean. And Nick is a massive Mycene doll fan and collector as well. So I'm very, very excited for this. You know, I've talked a little bit about Mycene dolls when I did my Bratz episode back in the very beginning of this podcast. And you'll notice the conversation about Mycene dolls always seems to circle back to Bratz, and I did try to make the focus of the episode specifically on Mycene dolls, but Bratz just cannot help themselves. It's also very exciting because the Mycene girls have just recently made a full comeback. Well, I wouldn't say full, but they are back. Mattel has just released, I guess I would say, a reintroduction of the Mycene doll line rather than a full-on reproduction of the Mycene dolls. They look incredible. When I recorded this episode, I think we had heard about a possible re-release, but maybe hadn't seen them yet, but they are in fact out now, and I did end up getting Barbie, and I just love her. These dolls look incredible. Before we get into the interview, I obviously have to mention that one, I went to the American Girl store in LA, and two, all of my dreams are coming true with the continuation of the Barbie and American Girl collaboration. First of all, the store was just fantastic. At this point, I had not stepped into an American Girl store in well over a decade, maybe even two, to be honest. And it was just so cool. I will say my expectations were super low because I really assumed the historical girls wouldn't have as much representation, but I was pleasantly surprised that they were literally everywhere. I wanted to get a new doll so bad, but I didn't think, well, I knew I wouldn't be able to get her back on the airplane with me because of how much I overpacked for my trip. But I was really actually super close to getting Julie, but I didn't. I ended up getting a few of the mini dolls, including a little mini Josefina who I got for my friend Andrea, who was getting married in LA that weekend. And it was a very special moment to give her that. Shout out to Trish. The wedding was wonderful. And then when I got home on Monday, I was so excited to have received my new Barbie outfit from American Girl. They just released a day-to-night fashion that I thought was so freaking cute. I haven't opened it yet because I want to maybe get like a Truly Me doll or something to put it on, but I am loving this and I really, really hope this continues. Like I've said before, there's so many Barbie fashions I'd love to see American Girl do, so I'm really, really crossing my fingers for more. And also, oh my gosh, it's December 2nd, 2nd. So I absolutely must give a shout out and wish a very happy birthday to my queen, Britney Jean Spears. I've been to LA a few times, but I never managed to get up to the Hollywood sign. So I was really excited to bring one of my favorite Britney custom dolls with me and, of course, get some content of her in front of the Hollywood sign. And we also visited her star. So that was very, very fun for me. Britney, I hope you have a wonderful birthday, of course. And I think this is actually super fitting because Mycene dolls totally remind me of that very iconic Y2K Britney Spears 2000s era. So let's get into this interview. As always, please follow me on Instagram, Britney Spears Custom Dolls or Iconic Dollcast. Follow me on TikTok at Britney Spears Dolls. And here is my interview with Nick all about Mycene dolls. Okay, everyone. Today I am talking all things Mycene dolls with Nick, and Nick is joining us today, all the way from Australia, which is very cool. Nick is a big fan and collector of the iconic Mycene dolls and also runs a very cool Mycene Instagram page, which I'm sure we'll talk about, and I'm super excited to get into this. Nick, thank you so much for being on the show. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. How are you?
I'm doing good. Our time difference is really like throwing me off. I
Yeah,
mean, so what time is it for you right now?
it's 12 midday Saturday.
Yes. And so for me, it is 8 8:11 on Friday. So you are way, way far ahead of me, which is just crazy to me. And I don't get a lot of chances to put an international guest on the show just because of time changes and stuff. But this worked out really, really well. So I'm super,
Yes.
super excited. How was your day? Did you do anything fun? I guess your day
Um,
is still going, huh?
yeah, it's still going. Didn't do much, just woke up, got all my dolls ready. And yeah, just been focusing on the My Scene page, having a lot of fun with that. I'm having so much fun. It's actually something I've been thinking about doing for years because My Scene has been my favorite since
Yes.
they came out. You know, you just things happen and then all of a sudden, just years later, and then just started and this is what has come out of it. So it's just so much fun. I've got to meet so many new people like you and other collectors, and it's been so much fun. It's been great.
I love that. So before we get into my scene dolls fully, because this is a deep, deep discussion, like I said, you are joining us from Australia. So tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do outside of iconic my scene creations.
I actually don't do a whole lot. I work. I got a part-time job. I like going to the gym, swimming, but they're pretty much just everything is on the my scene girls. Like I love them. But yeah, pretty much. No, I'm pretty much a homebody. I like staying at home. You know, just doing new
Me too.
outfits.
Me too.
Yeah.
And I mean, talking about my scene, I chose you to be on this show because you are very well educated and your passion for it is very, very clear. So you said you've been a big fan and collector of my scene dolls since they came out. Like, do you remember the first time you saw them? How did that all go down? What hooked you on them?
When I was either 11 or 12, my nan used to always take me to Kmart to go buy a Barbie. Every holidays, every, school holidays was always down there. Nan always used to take me to get a Barbie. But I was usually pretty quick with Barbies. Like to pick one that I wanted, I usually had a close eye on them. But then when I discovered when the My Scene girls were on the shelves, I distinctly remember looking at them and thinking, like, my mind was blown. Like, I remember because I was fortunate enough to be a little bit older to remember things like that. Like, like
Hmm.
usually like, when you're younger, you don't really remember what dolls, but I distinctly remember seeing the Chelsea doll and her red hair and thinking, oh my goodness, what is this? I even took longer. Even my nan was like, oh, like, move along. Like, come on, we got, thingy. But no, it was a really good night. Because my auntie, who's actually LGBT as well, we had a weekend down there and she took us to see Chicago the musical, and that's the
Oh,
same night we got the My Scene. So it's a really good memory to have. And we went out for dinner, but I remember sitting in the movie theater for 2 hours. It was a great movie, don't get me wrong, I loved it. But thinking, I just want to go home and open this doll. I want to see her three denim mini skirt, all that, like the outfits, the boob tube, the mini skirts, it was just a match made in heaven. And I remember that night, my auntie actually telling me, you know, adult doll collectors, because I was, my auntie telling me that, adult doll collectors like buy one and have one in the box and things like that. And no one had ever said that to me before. And it was just like like someone acknowledged, I don't know, it was just a really good feeling and a night that I'll never remember. And that is my memory for my scene. And it'll always be that. So it's just a really cool memory to have. And yeah, I'm very grateful for it.
yeah, that is so great. And so I'm going to assume I talked to a lot of, men on this show who collect dolls. I'm going to assume that just based on what you just told me, were you allowed to play with dolls as a
Yeah,
kid?
my parents were so laid back, very fortunate for that. Always had Barbies. Bratz was a huge Bratz collector too. Yeah, I had all types of dolls, Barbies. Yeah, you name it, I had it.
I love that. And I've always wondered, like, I mean, I'm sure you see, like, especially nowadays, we're so focused on the internet. We always know when dolls are going to be dropping and all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah.
Is it difficult sometimes to get dolls that are primarily marketed in America? Is that hard to find that in Australia?
Actually, it was back then because there was lots of dolls like that didn't get released here. And like we used to see like back then it was, you see on the back of the boxes the, get, Christie or Teresa or we never got a lot of Christies
Hmm.
over here, which was really disappointing. And yeah, lots of different things like I think there was lots of, I'm not sure about my scene, what my scene things we got, but I distinctly remember Barbie. Because do you remember the cool blue, perfect pink, that range? The
Yeah.
Barbie. Yeah, I distinctly remember when I was little, I had the cool blue one. I love that one. And my cousin wanted the purple, like panic purple, I think it was called. And my auntie looked everywhere for it. I don't know why I remember this story so vividly, but yeah, she couldn't find it anywhere in Australia. Like it was nowhere. The Christie, we never got her, so that was a real shame. So yeah, so we do. So yeah, on your question, we didn't get a lot.
Yeah, I mean, I've heard that a bit, that it's more difficult for the internet. I mean, I guess I sort of understand it. Just they want to. I mean, Barbie and Bratz and my, it's like a worldwide thing, you know, but it is focused on very American concepts. So that does
Yes,
make a little
yes.
bit of sense to me.
Australia is very Americanized, actually. Yeah, very. Yeah, which is cool. Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes. Um, so I remember my scene dolls, and we are definitely going to talk a little bit about the drama. I've done an episode on Bratz before. I need to revisit them, but obviously we can't talk about my scene without talking about the drama of, you know, between Mattel and MGA. But before that, what for just anyone maybe who doesn't know what a mycene doll or isn't that very familiar with them, what is the concept of mycene dolls and what made them different from Barbie?
So they stood at the same 11 and a half inch, but the proportion of their heads was bigger, just a little bit bigger. They had fuller lips, almond shaped eyes, puffy makeup, and the clothing was very different to Barbie. It was a lot more modern. It was a lot more trendy at the time. Well, I mean, it's all back in now, that trend, to be honest. But it was a lot more realistic, I guess the word would be. But, you know, in the Barbie land, you know, realistic. Yeah. Yeah, they were just a lot more modern, a lot more relatable, fun. They were just, yeah, a lot more fun. Like a lot more interchangeable. It was a lot more, you know, different hair colors, different textures, just different. Yeah, they were just, that was the, like Barbie was a bit more ballerina-ish
Hmm.
as a word, but you know, yeah,
Yeah, yeah,
more
yeah.
pink pastels. But yeah, my scene had a lot more color range, you know, like the color schemes and outfits and even the fabrics, like they just was on point.
When I, you know, when I think of my scene dolls, and you know, it's the same with Bratz, and we'll talk about the obvious comparisons in just a second, but I definitely do think Y2K, like early Britney Spears, you know, that huge craze, and very similar to Bratz, but in definitely a more whitewashed way. If we're gonna be honest, but
Yeah,
um,
yeah,
you know, you know, just like Bratz, the exaggerated features, they do look different from Bratz. I think Bratz look a little more cartoonish, but so do my scene.
yeah.
Not to say my scene dolls don't look cartoonish as well, but there is a difference, but there is quite a bit of a bit of similarity. So let's talk about those. What are some other similar? So basically, like, let's backtrack a little. When did my
Yeah.
scene dolls hit the shelves? Do you know?
2002.
Okay, exactly.
Yeah,
Y2K.
of course.
Um,
Yeah.
so you know, Bratz had come out not that long before these came out,
2001. It was only a year before. That was it.
and
Yeah.
Bratz were huge. They really came in and almost kicked Barbie's ass fully, and
Oh,
I think they even did for a little bit. And basically, you know, like you said, a year later, Mattel comes out with these dolls called mycene dolls, and I mean, size aside, I mean, down to proportions, features, somewhat hairstyles, somewhat. I mean, they're all pretty much the same. And so Mattel comes out with this mycene doll to compete with Bratz, and it causes a bunch of drama. A bunch of drama.
oh, like, yeah, it hit the fan, I'll put it that way. It really hit the fan when that, because when Bratz came out, I was huge, like I am still a huge Bratz fan. That's what got me into my scene because they're essentially, no, I wouldn't say one and the same, but
This is hard to explain. And I imagine this is why these lawsuits and everything was so just
messy.
confusing and just whatever. But they obviously resonate with you because you like them, and you can like both, you know, that is fine.
Yes.
But the fact that you do appreciate my scene so much, it just shows like these dolls were iconic too. And I think a lot of people kick them under the rug a little bit. But I
Yeah,
mean, my scene was a moment.
100%. And it just, I feel like they haven't really, like, there's great pages out there, people who, like, there's a Mycene wiki, there is so many different Mycene references, but like, I mean, I don't know about in the States, but over here, if you said Mycene to someone, they'll go, oh, like, what's that? But you say Bratz, oh, Bratz is household name. But whereas Mycene kind of, yeah, you're right, they did get pushed under the rug. They kind of could never escape that shell of being a Bratz clone. They could never really escape that title in a way.
100%. The story is, I guess, and let me just tell you. So, like I said, I did a Bratz episode so long ago, and I remember. I'm sure I talked about it when it was one of my first, and I had to re-record the episode because I was like, I'm getting so backwards here. Like this is confusing the shit out of me. Like I don't even understand because I always assumed I knew there was a battle, but then Bratz went away. And it was kind of like, it was very perceived that I think that Bratz lost this battle. But basically, I mean, you know what happened. Some guy works at Mattel
Yeah.
and he
Right.
allegedly, all allegedly, like I am not, I read through a lot of this shit, but I don't actually, from what I took from it is he works at Mattel and then decides to pitch his idea over to this other company called MGA. Right? How did
Yeah,
this?
yeah, because I did some research on this too, and I've always like been involved in this and always wanted to know. But I did a deep dive into it the other day actually, and from what I could get out of it, because even my mind was blown. There was just so many different aspects and things, and yeah. But from what I got out of it is that it was Carter Bryant, I believe, and I could be correct me because it's still gone over my head. Mattel sued him originally, like personally. I think this is all just, yeah.
Think
Correct me
so
if I'm
too.
wrong. Yeah,
Maybe.
and then when they sued him, MGA stepped in to back him up, and then that's when it really that's as far as I got with it
Yeah, yeah,
because
yeah.
it was just yeah,
That sounds right. And like, yeah, so he takes this idea to MGA and they put out the Bratz dolls and Mattel is shitting themselves. They're like, what the hell?
yeah, 100
And
percent.
they find out about this way later that this guy, he used to work for them, and I guess technically or something, their stance was, well, he still worked for Mattel when you pitch this idea, so Bratz is actually
Yeah,
our
out.
brand
Yeah,
or whatever, and they fought back and forth, and I think initially, so then Mattel releases the Mycene dolls, and then I think MGA sued them back, and they were like, "Well,
yeah, a
you stole
countersuit.
this, and it just kind of goes on. And I think from what I remember, Mattel actually won the case first, but then they got again. It was just countersuing,
Yeah,
back and forth.
yeah,
But then MGA did get the rights back to Bratz, and then soon after, or kept their rights to Bratz, and then soon after, the Mycene dolls died out. But it's
yeah. And
just
I think they knew what the Mattel knew what they were doing when they did that. It was, even though Bratz won, MGA won, the damage was already done from
mhm.
them. Like, because Bratz did get taken off the shelves. I still distinctly remember being at we have it's called Big W over here. It's like a Kmart.
Okay.
And there was just a big tub of Bratz, the Bratz Flower Girls, actually. No, Flower, oh, I can't remember what the name is. And there was just a tub of them, and they were like $10. From back then, that was like, for a Bratz, was so cheap. And I never got any, which I should have, but anyway. And yeah, that's when I remember, that's when Bratz were off the shelves. Like, I remember that was a big thing. Like, they're pulling them off just left, right, and center. And I think from them being away from the shelves, Mattel was like, yeah, you know what? You're off the shelves now. People kind of just, I wouldn't say got over them or anything like that, but, things move on and a new trend starts. And then obviously Monster High came out and that just took over.
Yes.
Yes, that's what yeah. And then that was Mattel. So they got, they did what they had, yeah, even though Bratz won, because they were taken off the shelves for a period of time. I don't recall how long they were taken off, but it was long enough to bring in a new phase, bring in a new
Right.
fad. Yeah.
And so, I mean, it's so hard not to talk about the two together because of all of this, and which is sucks because they do have their own individual thing. So
Yeah.
like go, focusing on my scene, we'll get back into this drama because I do still firmly believe that this continues to this day, just the digs that these companies take at each other. But I mean,
100%.
my scene was its own thing too, and like had characters. And you were talking about Chelsea. I think I had someone else on the show who talked about how a Chelsea doll was their very first doll, and I was like,
Yeah.
I didn't remember. I didn't remember. I kind of missed the Bratz and my scene craze. Like at that time, I was very like Britney Spears and like I don't really care,
Yeah.
But tell me, I mean, so they had distinct character, just like the Bratz. So like, there's Chelsea. Who else is
Yeah.
there? Are the main girls?
So there's a few different gangs, I guess, or gangs is probably the right word, like core, like Brat's always stuck with the four core. There's always Jade, Chloe, Yasmin, Sasha. But then when my scene came out, originally it was three characters, Madison, Chelsea, and Barbie. Then
I always forget that Barbie. There was a Barbie my scene doll.
yes, yes. It's crazy. They moved her into my scene. And then they introduced Noli, the fourth core member. And then I think it was a year later, or maybe that year, possibly, they introduced a fifth member called Delancey. And they stuck with that for a while. And then later on, I'm very much more of a my scene the earlier years.
Mm-hmm.
When it comes to the later years, the bling era, I get a bit confused in that. I'm still working that one out because there's lots of different lines, there's a few new characters, and they changed the four core. I think they went with Madison, Chelsea, Barbie, and Delancey. And then I think they introduced Ania, a Latina character.
Okay.
And then, yeah.
Because I do feel like a big argument with, my scene. Well, I mean, like they were very successful. My scene were very popular. I mean, they definitely they were put out for a reason, and that reason was successful. They competed directly with the Bratz dolls. And, I mean, it's just like, when we were kids, like, do you like Backstreet Boys or do you like NSYNC? Or
Yes.
do you like Britney Spears or do you like Christina Aguilera? Do you like
Yeah.
Bratz or do you like my scene? It was very like you're one or the
Yeah.
other. And that's unfortunate, but it is how the world works. But
It
they were
is.
they were really successful. They're iconic dolls and they're very well known,
What was it? What was my scene really popular in the States when it first came out? Like, how was it received?
I think so. I remember my scene doll. If I remember it, it had to have had a moment, And
Yeah,
so
yeah,
I
yeah.
definitely remember Bratz, but I do remember when the my scene doll came out, and like I remember not knowing like the difference. I didn't really at the time I wasn't focused on that, but I do think so. And I
They
do
were
base
original,
I base doll success off of what I find in thrift stores because I'm a very avid thrift store goer. And I mean, I say this all the time on the show. There's a lot of them in my area and I go to them all the time and I frequently find my scene dolls all the time.
Oh, I'm so jealous. That sounds amazing.
So that to me says that a lot of people had them when it's like I can consistently go
Yeah.
and at least find one. So yeah, I think they were really popular, but I do think the drama kind of overshadowed both of the brands and kind of it had a negative lawsuits won or lost regardless. Like it really put a dark shadow above both of them, which Mattel doesn't care because that just makes room for Barbie to go
Yeah.
back into
To
her spot,
Barbie to get back on her throne. Yeah, exactly. They wanted her back on, they wanted her back fourth. Because I remember before Bratz came out, that was probably the most, like, it was Barbie. It's always been Barbie for years before that. And it's so amazing. Well, not amazing in that way, but to see another brand compete against, I mean, it's Barbie. You don't compete with Barbie.
Well, they're
Like,
also competing against themselves because my scene is still a Barbie, that's what's wild to me. But anyway, continue.
the way I actually, because trying to explain to people about Barbie and my scene and how it's the way I had a little thing I just explained to someone before. I put Sex and the City and Gossip Girl. Take Carrie Bradshaw and put her in Gossip Girl. That's the best way I could describe how Barbie is in the My Scene land, in a way.
Interesting.
Because because people are like, oh, it's Barbie, but no, it's My Scene. And then you get people on the Barbie pages that say, no, My Scene's not Barbie. And then it's like, well, it's Barbie, but it's not, but it is. And it is, yeah, it just goes back and forth. Same with
It,
that lawsuit. Actually, it's like that. It's a bit like,
it is. And like, I don't want to harp on the lawsuit too much, but like I said, it's just such a big part. But
yeah,
let me get your opinion. As someone, you're a big fan of both. And I know a lot of people are. Do you think, in your mind, what is your opinion? Do you think MGA had a valid lawsuit against Mattel when they put out their My Scene dolls?
yes, I do.
I, I do as well.
Yeah, because it was. I mean,
It's a blatant copy.
it's just change it up a bit. It's like giving someone your homework. So I'll just change it up a bit. It's
And I
just
think they made her taller, and that's really about. Do My Scene dolls? No, they don't. They don't come off like Bratz, right?
no. They've got their bodies are completely Barbie,
Yep.
so they're interchangeable with Barbie wardrobes, belly button bodies. Their feet are the same, so Barbie shoes fit my scene, and that was the intention to bring
Which is
that.
smart.
Yeah, very smart, innovative. They brought that into like the tweens and the young marker could still interchangeable and bring Barbie back in. Yeah, they definitely knew what they were doing. That was a yeah. And to me, like later on, I take that as a win because now, because I'm actually all my Barbie clothes that I had, all the my scene girls doubled their wardrobe. So that just yeah.
Right. And Mattel's always been very, very, very smart about that. And it's been, pretty much proven, Barbie is truly the end all be all. Everyone will always compete with Barbie, and it never really works out very well when dolls are dolls. You got dolls in all sizes, right? But when you're trying to make a fashion doll a fashion doll size doll, however you say that, come out, and you change her size, it automatically cancels out like 50% of your revenue because parents don't want to buy something that can't be used as much. So, we saw that happen with, I mean, Gem and the Holograms is a great example of
That's
Mattel versus whoever that was. What, Hasbro, maybe? I don't even remember.
Hasbro. Yeah, Hasbro.
But
That was
Gem was too big to wear
Hasbro.
Barbie's clothes. So, like, so parents already don't want to buy her. And then they also released their own little rock star Barbie.
Yes, and they were so
Mattel's brutal.
brutal. And I remember seeing an interview about that actually, the Gem and the Holograms. Barbie put in their Barbie and the Rockers. They rushed production, I'm pretty sure, to get the
Oh, yeah.
Barbie out first. So it looked like Gem and the Holograms was copying Barbie. They knew
Oh, for
exactly
sure. And they still do. But I do think they really fumbled with this My Scene doll. And it is what it is. But like I said earlier, these companies are still going at it with each other. I mean, I think Bratz has been having quite a couple, maybe 2 years, maybe at this point, a relaunch.
Yeah,
There are
good and
consistently,
successful too.
Bratz in the store, and it's no surprise that, My Scene dolls are coming out. Or if you look at, they've got Monster High, which is a huge, huge
That
brand.
is,
But then MGA has Rainbow High, and those dolls are very different, but it's a confusing, they're doing that to fuck with each other. And
mhm.
I would say, have you seen like they're called the Barbie Besties? I don't.
Yes, I've seen one. Yeah, my
Yeah,
friends got a few of them.
it is very Rainbow High meets Bratz doll put in
Yeah,
one. They're
yeah.
always trying to. This continues to this day, but I think ultimately with those two brands, hopefully they learned a lesson where it's just like someone may have won, but you both really lost this battle.
Yeah, it really put a bad taste in people's mouths with that. But yeah,
And so when did
um,
My Scene dolls really go? When were they done the first time?
they actually were in the US. They got discontinued in 2008 and worldwide though 2011. So they did last a pretty long time. They
Okay.
did surpass Bratz worldwide, I'm pretty sure.
That's
Pretty sure.
interesting.
Yeah.
I wonder if there were anything like, canceled, things they were planning on releasing in the United States as well, but they didn't end up doing that. So
Mm.
they just continued to distribute what they had ready to go.
They looked at where my scene was selling the most, and it was actually Latin America that was doing really well. And that's why they introduced Naya, the Latina character, who is absolutely gorgeous. We actually never got her in Australia. I'm 99% sure because I've never seen her at any thrift stores. I've never seen her, I haven't seen her anywhere over here, which was a shame because she's stunning. And but yeah, it's just really interesting that
It is interesting because it's just very like they had to stop it from going out in the country that they are marketed for, but they continue to release it because also
Yeah.
sometimes trends catch on a little bit later. So that there's pros and cons to that, and definitely I can think of a few theories of why that would happen, but that doesn't surprise me. But back to what I was saying, like these were very iconic, and so I mean there was a web series of My Scene. I think a
Web
couple of.
series
So did that come out with the original dolls? Like, how did that work?
correspondent, because there was the iconic website, myscene.com. They had blogs on there, they had games, they had webisodes, and it corresponded with the dolls that you got.
Yes,
Which
yes. And this is where, sorry to interrupt you, but this
no,
is
no, no,
kind
that's
of where I think Mattel really, really took advantage of that Y2K-ness because we were all learning about computers then and the internet, and that it was so smart because it's we talk about, on the show a lot again, just how important it is to have backstories to expand kids' imaginations and a very interactive thing like that. I remember the My Scene website.
funny fact, I never actually went on it when I was younger. I got to experience that when I was young, but I've heard from everyone that it was iconic. And I've gone on it now and had a play around, and it's so much fun. It's beautiful. That is a
Just
beautiful.
so smart. And so is a web series because I mean, I'm sure they got, their sales really increased because everyone was trying to figure that shit out at the time. And also
Yeah.
there's some movies.
Yeah, there's three movies. There's Gemini in Jamaica, My Scene Goes Hollywood, and Masquerade Madness, which was the absolute, that line lives rent free in my head.
And these movies were animated, correct?
Correct. Yeah.
Correct. Okay. Okay. So how many, I mean, do you know approximately how many different waves or lines they had of My Scene Doll? I mean, that's like you said, 2002
Oh,
to 2009. That's a lot of
that's a lot.
time.
There are so many different lines. Like, I couldn't, there would be, I would say maybe 50 to 100,
Oh, wow. Okay.
maybe possibly over the, because there were so many different, maybe possibly even more.
Tell me about what it's like to be a My Scene collector, because I know for people who are really into Bratz, not to keep comparing the two, because I swear they are
No.
different. Um, I know Bratz has a lot of new stuff in the stores, but for those really vintage original Bratz, I mean, they're getting up there in cost. So, how many do you have? How are you collecting them? Tell me about that.
I've got around ballpark figure 200, few in box, maybe about 15 in box. But my scenes over here anyway, very hard to come across. eBay, you can definitely get heaps on eBay. There's heaps on there. But to find ones in thrift stores or marketplace, things like that, they're far and few between. I actually just picked up one a few weeks ago, luckily, Madison first edition, who I was on the hunt for I've been on the hunt for her for years. Like I had the Chelsea and Barbie, got multiple of them. But the Madison, you just have that doll that you just can't get your hands on, but you
Oh
just
yeah,
so yeah, yeah. Um, Picked her up for $60, and that's in Australian currency. So translation, I can't work that one out.
I
Maybe
suck at math. I don't know.
yeah, yeah, $30 possibly. I know you used to half it, but that was like 10 years ago. I don't know now. I'd be like $30, around $30 US,
Okay.
35 dollars, which is a really good price to find a mycene for, especially.
And so, like, I mean, yeah, people are charging out, way a lot for those. I assumed that just because they, like I said, they're so iconic. And honestly, like, Bratz has so overshadowed them. But it's like, I don't know. I didn't get into My Scene dolls when I was a kid, but I knew about them. And I knew, like, I just remember being like, those are very Britney, you know? Like I just
Yes.
I relate everything back to my Queen Britney Spears, but really truly like the fashions, whatever. And so I assumed there were some rarity. Are there any of them that you don't have that you're like, I must get this one day?
Oh, too many. There's Jai. Jai from Germany and Jamaica. Beautiful doll. They only made one of her in a two-pack. And that doll, she had a darker skin complexion and she was just absolutely stunning. She's beautiful, that doll. And to find her is that's gonna be a hard one to find. And Naya, another one that is in Australia anyway, another one hard to find. And then there's different play sets and the play sets. Oh,
Oh yeah. So yeah,
yeah.
let's talk about this. I should let's talk about this. So my
Oh,
scene dolls, like they were not just dolls. Obviously there were many of them and many
oh,
outfits, but there's a lot of merch. So tell me there's play sets, just like I mean,
oh.
tell me about those.
There is the first play sets that came out were spring break play sets. There was My Boutique, My Cafe, My City. No, My City, sorry, My Club, which was very ambiguous ages for the. Anyway, we won't go into that. We'll go set to the play sets. So they had the cafes, they had clubs, they had limos, they had pools. They just had, and these play sets were like top notch. Like that was like final tier, boss level. Like the club play set, especially if that play set, it came, had lights, it had a dance floor that interactive. It just, I think it was my girls' night out. No, that's Bratz.
That's
Sorry.
Bratz. I was just gonna say because a lot of these sound very familiar to Bratz, and I'm not Team Bratz or Team Mycene, but everything you do, I'm like I've talked about this before. I'm
Yeah,
like
it's
because I
very
talked about this in Bratz.
girls' night out. It wasn't girls' night out. So it was very similar. It was very like girls on the town or girls. It was something like that. But yeah, that club play set. Oh my goodness. And yeah,
That's
and just
iconic.
there's another one that's really rare as well. There's a Delancey pool. It's like in the bling era, and Delancey. Don't recall the name of it exactly, but she comes with a pool, and it's beautiful. It's absolutely stunning.
When you say bling era, you've said that a few times. What is? Tell me what that
Oh
means.
yes, okay. So bling era. So we've got the first wave of my scenes, and they've got their original faces that the first wave of my scenes came out with. Then they switched to more of a cat-like eye, and it was very bling. Everything was glittery. It was a shift. It was like the my scene before and my scene after kind of thing. It was very, very different. And they just had more, I guess you'd say, adulty, more far, just adult. Like they had
More
fierce,
mature. Yeah.
mature. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, more mature faces. They were fierce. Like they look like supermodels. Like they just were, and that face mold is absolutely stunning. So you have the bling. You got the bling era, and then post bling era. So I like to call it like there's the Barbie era, then there's the bling era, because around the time bling era swapped over, that's when they took Barbie out of my scene. Back to Bratz, sorry to relate it back, but they
It's fine.
were, for the time, I remember there was lots of controversy about Bratz looking a
Yep.
certain way, looking, mini skirts, little tops. Like parents were concerned at the time. And
Well, I think where you were going with that is how they changed it to the next era because the first time around, like you said, I feel like the Mycene dolls, their outfits are like they're very trendy, but they're not like super
yeah,
super controversial the way that Bratz were.
yeah. And I definitely think the Bratz took it on the cheek for that. My scene kind of got away with it because it was linked with, that was it. So they took Barbie out to preserve her image a bit more because they wanted to keep her more family friendly. And that's when they let the other, like Kennedy took over at that point, exactly
Right.
the same character. And then they just went into this just completely blingtastic era. It was just iconic.
Yeah,
And
yeah. I mean, obviously, you have a whole you're taking my scene over Bratz any day, yeah.
100%.
Okay, cool.
I still love Bratz, and I do still have a few. I am actually in the process of downsizing my collection like enormously because like I've been collecting now. Like I'm 35. I've been collecting since I never grew out of it. I've
Mm.
been a doll collector since I was a kid. I never, even through my high school, as I just said, through my high school years, I still collected dolls, never grew out of it. So I've got a lot of dolls to sell and move along. But I'm still going to keep a few Bratz because they're still, I had a lot of Bratz when I was in high school and they still dear to my heart. They're probably second, but yeah,
Mm.
I'll take a Mycene any day.
I figured.
Yeah, you can tell.
Okay, so now we're in the year 2024, and Bratz has had a pretty, can't can't tell if they're successful or not. I think it's hit or miss. I think there's been a lot of new Bratz out on the stores. It seems like, every season there's a new set that they're coming out with. I don't know how successful the Bratz relaunch has been going. I do see them quite frequently on clearance, but they keep coming out. I think their Kylie Jenner thing was a total flop. Obviously, we've talked about and everyone has been buzzing about it at this point. Bratz just relaunched limited edition Mean Girls dolls, or they are, and the first one came out yesterday and it sold out in like 2 minutes, and people were just melting down about it, which tells me like, okay, Bratz is still doing pretty well. But now we hear that Mattel is going to relaunch potentially the Mycene dolls or a reproduction or something like that. Tell me about that. Tell me your thoughts on that. What is going on with it? Tell me everything.
Well, they are. Mattel is definitely teasing because they brought out an ad campaign. I think it was on Mattel Creations on the Instagram. And there was the original Chelsea doll was in it. There was another Barbie, and I can't recall what else was in there, but they had a Chelsea doll floating around in there. So there's something is definitely coming. And then I believe it was Mandarin. There was Mandarin writing on a picture, and it had the silhouettes of all the Mycene girls. Mm. And yeah, Y2K aesthetics, all these, I can't remember off the top of my head exactly what it said, but yeah, something is definitely coming. And I think from what I heard, I actually had a friend, an online friend, that told me he went to a convention, or I don't exactly know where he went, but it was a Mattel exclusive. The Mycene dolls were there. He actually told me, I mean, this is from what I've heard. He said apparently they got a lot of wows and the quality was apparently there, to my knowledge. So that's just, yeah.
I've definitely heard some things too. I mean, they would be stupid not to do something like that. Everything from my childhood is currently having a huge nostalgia wave. You can go to the store and get almost anything from my childhood, whether it be,
Yeah.
Ninja Turtles, Power Rangers, Bratz, Mycene dolls, like whatever. They'd be stupid not to, or like I said, bring out Mycene again. And it's just so funny, you think about these leaks that come out, right? And that's such a Hollywood industry thing. It's like people's music leaks or scripts leak, but sometimes I tell people about things. I'm like, oh, this is coming and this is so, and they're like, how do you know that? And I'm like, it's a leak. And that happens in the fucking toy industry too, where it's like there are leaks and people get in trouble for sharing them. So
yeah. Even I thought when I put it on, I was like, oh, maybe you shouldn't be putting it on. But I thought, oh, whatever, just whatever happens, happens. It got leaked, so it's anyone's game after that.
Right. And it's the people who actually leak it where it's like, okay, I mean, I appreciate that, but it's just thanks for that. But it is just so funny that how the toy industry is huge and there's things like leaks in the toy industry that you wouldn't, someone random who's not into that kind of thing would be like, oh, what do you mean? And it's like, no. They put this shit down on lock. It's just like a brand new Taylor Swift album. No one's hearing it till it comes out, but every once in a while,
someone gets in there, and actually, there was, going back to, I know we're not going to stay on the lawsuit too long, but apparently there was. Then I read this, seen this a few months ago. Apparently, there was allegations from Mattel employees and MGA employees that they were sneaking into different rooms or something around them lines and taking photos or stealing trade secrets. It's just hilarious to me that over fashion dolls that there's just people sneaking in. It's like, oh, CIA, FBI trying to get,
yeah.
And people don't realize that this world is the doll world is its own.
It can get pretty intense. Yeah. I mean, even with, there's just so much stuff. It's just like concert tickets. There are people who literally who probably bought up all these Mean Girls dolls just to sell them for double the profit,
And they're already on eBay. They're already on eBay, the Mean Girls dolls, one day after.
Really, really, really crazy. But are you excited about a relaunch or a reproduction of this?
Absolutely. That is, when I seen the dolls, I am so excited for these.
I'm not, I'm not a Mycene doll collector, but I'll definitely get one if they do a reproduction line of it, just because that is very, very iconic. So I'm excited too, and it's just like, what is gonna get reproduced next? I don't even know, but my wallet is hurting.
Yeah, I hear you. I hear.
It
Actually,
is.
yeah, it's all coming. It's all. There was a picture, a cartoon art, no, sorry, art style picture leaked of the Mycene logo, the new one, and the outfits do look really nice.
Wow. Yeah, they're
Yeah.
gonna do something big with those, I'm sure.
Mm, mm.
That's exciting. So, what in your collection, thinking about it, is like if I say, "What's your favorite Mycene doll?" Which one comes to your mind first?
Spring Break Nolly. She is my
Oh,
absolute favorite. Yeah, she's actually in the background. Oh, there she is.
oh,
Yeah, yeah.
iconic. So she's your
She is.
favorite.
She is my favorite.
Just, another, one more question. So obviously you got Mycene, you got Bratz. What are some of the other things that you've really gotten into collecting doll wise?
I was absolute fiend for dolls through my 20s. I collected, as I said, I've been collecting since I was a kid, and I had Rainbow High, Monster High, Ever After High, OMG, LOL, OMG. Oh, when they
Oh,
came,
yes.
because there was a bit of a drought in the doll world for a little bit in the
Hmm.
2000, like mid 2015 era. It was only real Barbie on the shelves at that time. And like there was no Bratz, there was no Mycene, there was no Monster High. So when OMG, LOL OMG came out, that was the first doll to come out, like a really nice doll to come out, like quality and all that kind of thing. And I just went crazy with them. I've got so many LOL OMGs
I will
that need me
say
home.
about those dolls, I haven't talked about those really on the show yet. I certainly haven't done an episode on them, but I only have a couple of them. I did like, I got the one that definitely is inspired by Britney Spears.
Oh,
And I will
toxic.
say, I was pleasantly surprised with how much came with that doll.
Mm. She's a
So,
gorgeous doll. Yeah.
and she just had so many cool accessories and all that stuff. Well, Nick, thank you so much. I know my scene was our focus. I know we talked a lot about Bratz, but it's okay because the two are intertwined, iconic nonetheless. So, again, thank you so much for this. But please tell everyone where they can find you on the internet.
Okay, so I've got Instagram and it's called My Scene Central. I do have TikTok and YouTube, but I don't really use the two. So it's more just Instagram I use.
You post a lot of my scene related. Obviously, it's all my scene related stuff, and
Yeah,
it's
it's
really
all my
cool. It's what hooked me. I was like, this guy knows what he's talking about. I gotta get him on the show because
Oh,
it's
thank
my
you.
scene focus. So if you're into that, go check his stuff out. But seriously, thank you so much for doing this, and I will keep in touch. I can't wait to see what happens with this my scene relaunch. I'm excited for you, but I'm also excited too.
Oh, so thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure. I could
Yeah,
talk about this all day.
and I love that. I love
Yes.
it. Oh, that was wonderful. Thank you, Nick, so much for being on the show. That was so great. I have heard those Mycene dolls haven't officially come out in Australia just yet, but I hope you get your hands on them very soon. Thank you for chatting with me. You are so knowledgeable and passionate about Mycene, so it was great to have you on. Next week, I am talking with yet another amazing Barbie collector, which I'm just very excited for. And just a few weeks left in 2024, and I feel like I have so much to do. Also, just a reminder, I will be recording new episodes through February. So if you want to be on the show, please reach out. I would love to have you. If you're enjoying the show, please leave me 5 stars or give me a nice review. It really helps. Follow me on all of the things: Instagram, TikTok, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you may find me. And I will talk with you guys next time.